We are live. You can get started.
Okay. Everyone can hear. My name is Assad Safiullah. We'll be talking on some, a few pointers about, how to choose the right career path and what companies to go for, and the kind of roles that you would see in the tech world. A quick intro of myself. This is, hopefully less about me and more about why you should care about what I'm about to say. I'm a father of two that, shapes a lot of the decisions and, the career choices that I've made. I've been a software engineer my entire career. Right after graduating, and then I did my PS from FAST Islamabad and grad school from UT Arlington. My only hobby with the addition of kids right now is being an occasional casual musician. I'm currently working for Microsoft. I am an engineering manager. For a good part of my career now, I've been managing folks. And prior to this, I worked at other companies like Salesforce, Tableau, a very early stage startup, under 20 people. And I'm back to Microsoft after, I think, 8 or 9 years. So that's me. And let's jump right into this. So a couple logistics. If folks have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat window. And I see there's already something there, sacrifice the one day for feel free to leave them in the chat window. And I think one of the moderators will either direct me to take those questions, or I will pick up on them. We'll keep it pretty fluid, if that's okay with everyone. All right, so let's start. Here was something that I was hoping to cover in the 30 minutes. The first thing I would say is, these are my opinions. You may disagree with them. Certainly not Microsoft's opinions. And this is just based off of my experience past whatever 15 years. 30 minutes obviously is not enough to discuss everything there is to talk about choosing a career and what roles you can take on. But I think I'm hoping to cover a few key points that will hopefully that can hopefully act as guidelines for you to then go and do your own research. And as always, this is an excellent platform. I am happy to connect with folks over LinkedIn as appropriate after this talk as well. I just love to connect with folks who are just graduating, getting into the workforce. So the key things that I want to get out of today are: one, what makes a quote unquote good career? What options do you have? And then where to start. And so through the next few slides, I'm hoping that I will cover these in varying details and whatnot. And then I'd like to leave as much time as I can out for questions, because I think that's really going to be more helpful, because I have an idea of what people would be interested in, and that's what I'm going to try and cover. But really, it really is about what folks are most interested in, and I'm happy to just talk about that once we're through the slides. All right, so what makes a good career? And I put that in quotes, obviously, for because of the fantastic variance that comes with that term. Really, what a good career is to me may not be a good career for you. So it's like just super subjective. But I believe there are three high-level things that I think all of us would agree are, the good descriptors of a good career. The first one is it gives you a sense of fulfillment, and that is, anything from job satisfaction to just feeling good about what you do. You come back home and you don't feel like you're satisfied. Obviously that's a bad career. The rewards are worth the effort. So this is about you being valued, right? It's amazing that there's a lot of things that could be swapped with the word rewards, and compensation is the one that comes to mind the most. But you can, as you can see, there's a bunch of people who jobs and they go into startups like 1/5 of the salary that they used to make. And so rewards are really what you value. And so whatever the rewards that come with the job should be worth the effort that you're putting in. And that could be anything, like I said, from compensation to recognition, or you building the skills that you need for your next gig. It could be anything. It really depends a lot on you. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And the third, really important point here would be just, as your career progresses, you should be able to see yourself growing. So there should be career growth, and career growth could mean a number of things. You could use career growth as another term for just, climbing the ladder, so to say. You could use it as something that helps you do something that you're doing something on year one, you do that same thing in year two, you do it better, or you do more of that, or you're able to lead more people and you're able to make other people do what you do just as well. And so these three things are what I would keep in mind when I'm talking about a good career. So again, sense of fulfillment, rewarding, and worth the effort, and then also growth within your career. So let's, with that lens, I'll move forward and start talking about the actual meat, the fun stuff. So let's talk about, what options exist in the world of tech. I put tech in quotes because, Texas Instruments is also tech. Anything that's technology can be called tech. But when I talk about tech specifically, because of my background, tech is more, the information technology world. If you go and search, the big tech, you'll see names like Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple. And so I'm very specifically talking about the software industry, and not about technology in the true sense. But I assume that that's okay with folks. And so this specific slide, it's less about me going through every single title that exists in the tech industry today. This is more to tell you that you have options. You can be coming from a background where you may not have a degree in computer science. You can still be in tech. You might be a business person. You can still be in tech. You might not have any of those. You might come from a mechanical engineering background. You can still be in tech. You can have various roles. You can assume various roles. So let me run through this list, just to give you a sense of what are the different sort of titles and roles that people assume in the tech world. And I'll start with the good old software developer, because I feel like that is the most, so far, most well-defined role in the tech world. Everything else, there are nuances to it, and that it's not to say that software developers don't. But this happens to be the role that has the most openings. It happens to be the role that is most well-defined. It's just been around the longest. And so software developer is someone who writes code. It's interesting, in the tech world, we borrow a lot of our terminology from construction. So people who build are software developers. You would be writing code on a day-to-day basis. There are nuances, of course. You might be writing front-end code. Like front-end would mean you're writing code for UI, and as opposed to writing code for building pipelines or managing data, all of that stuff. So there could be specializations within that role. But usually these skills are transferable. And I would say when you're starting out, being a full stack generic developer can write code in a couple object-oriented languages and some scripting languages. I think you have a pretty good chance of refining that to be a software developer. I'll come to product manager next. Again, I'll caveat this with each of these roles are different. They in different companies. Product manager, what I might describe to you right now may be completely different from what you've seen in company X. But in general terms, product managers are responsible for taking the product or a feature within the product from conception to delivery. They are responsible for making sure that the features of the product meets the customer requirements. They actually interface with the customers. They interface with the engineering teams. They build the features, so to say, kind of like the blueprint, and then they actually help deliver it. Another term, this is another like super varied title. Program manager can be anything from a project manager that runs releases all the way to a role very similar to the product manager. But again, this is less focused on writing code. It's more being the conduit between engineering teams and the surrounding business cycle, or engineering teams and customers. Data analysts, this is again, there's a lot of people.
Hi, Assad. I think we lost your audio.
Oh.
Okay, it's back now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right. So just give me 1 second. Sorry about that. I don't know why that happened. It looks like I'm still connected. Anyhow, so now let's move back here. Yeah, data analyst. What I was saying was, people might disagree with me here, but it looks like the host muted me. Am I still?
I think so. I have the audio from your presentation feed coming in.
Yeah, as long as you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I'm a data analyst, like looking at trends and whatnot. So the skills you would need here are, you will need some coding here, but you need to be proficient with, I don't know, stats, R, tools like Tableau, Power BI. Coming to data engineer, again, data engineer could be, the way I see data engineers, they are people who make the handling of data easy. They would store data, so they are building pipelines, they're doing ETL, they're just facilitating the acquisition of data. Again, you might need to be a software developer here, but majority of what you do is data related. And data analyst and data engineer, the boundaries can blur between the two roles. And then there's UX designer, as the name is kind of self-explanatory. You could be really good at human-computer interaction. It's not just UI. Anything that has an interface needs user interaction, focus. But there's UX designers that build those interfaces and make sure that it's a natural experience for people to use the products. So really, again, the point here is you have options beyond just writing code in the tech world. And so don't restrict yourself to just one thing, and just like explore within yourself, what are the skills that you bring to the table, and we can talk to that point a little bit more. So that said, I want to talk about a little bit on the type of roles that exist. And there's admittedly a bunch more here that I don't put on the screen here, but there are 3 main roles that especially when you're starting out, you would interact with the most. Or if you're coming, returning to the workforce, or switching fields, it's just something that's good to know. There's the individual contributor. An individual contributor is someone who is responsible for they can take initiatives, but they're really responsible for their own work. A technical lead is usually a senior person who has climbed the rungs and been an individual contributor at some point. They are not people managers, but they're still responsible for getting work done through others. And then managers, the manager role is again varied at different companies, but for the most part, I think the industry is moving towards a manager being responsible for people's careers. So you get less technical, and I say technical, that's being deep into the nitty gritty, knowing the minor details, being at the very low level. And instead of doing that, you're focused on people's careers, you're focused on helping people grow. Your success is in the success of other people. The reason I think you should know this is because starting out, you will start out as an individual contributor, but there's a misconception, and admittedly I've had that as well, is that, manager is a rung on the ladder, which is not exactly true, because you can be a pretty senior IC, individual contributor, and not be a manager. And so the reason the reason you should look within yourself and try to figure out what you need to do in the long term is, even if you start out as an individual contributor, you may not want to be a manager, or you may want to be a manager and you want to choose the projects, and you want to choose areas that give you opportunities to lead. And so knowing this is I think pretty important. But that said, I think starting out, you would probably start out as an individual contributor, unless you're moving from another field and you have transferable management skills. And so let's talk a little bit about the different bands of companies that you can target when you're starting your career, or moving into tech. There are more categories of companies here, undoubtedly, but these are the big ones. I talked about big tech. Big tech are those really huge 100,000, 50,000, 150,000 people companies. Some of these are a trillion, $1.5 to $2 trillion market cap companies. The reason I mention that is because these companies are just massive. You would be hard pressed to find areas where these companies do not compete. And so whoever you are, whatever you bring to the table, whatever domain you like, there's going to be a place for you. If you are able to cross their bar, there's going to be a place for you at these companies, anywhere from front end heavy things, phone apps, cloud technologies. Big tech will just have a huge opportunity for you. The downside of big tech is every single job application has hundreds of applications, right? So as a hiring manager, I would really not have a lot of time to just look at every resume. So you have to be just very impressive on the resume, on paper, right away for me to notice you if you're applying to one of these companies. The second category is technology in the non-tech sector. Non-tech as in financial, logistics. I'll give you an example of say Goldman Sachs, or I don't know, Bloomberg as a financial company. So these companies are very focused on domains. Your tech career can be very rewarding in these areas still, but the focus is going to be on a certain domain. They're going to look for a certain type of personality. You would have to, if you're going in fresh, then it may not matter as much, but if you're going in from another company, then it really matters that you know the domain in some capacity. Again, it's not as the variety of roles will definitely not be as much as there is in big tech. But if you know the domain that you are really passionate about, this is going to be pretty good. Number 3, startups. Startups have their own, nuances. The biggest one that, I worked at a startup, like I mentioned, under 20 people. The biggest thing that, is true about a startup is that the startup is out to disrupt, which means that it is going to be a frenzy, right? You're going to be working through just a lot of uncertainty. There's going to be a lot of ambiguity. You need to be able to work through that. Compensation is lower, but if the startup makes it big, then you can have a big financial opportunity there. And then there are smaller companies which are not startups. They have a defined market. They're not looking to disrupt. They have they have a good customer set. They're working like insurance companies that provide technology for insurance, or they be you won't see the growth within the company as much as you would see in other areas. So again, let's keep these three things in mind: the type of companies, the type of roles, and the kind of the titles, or I shouldn't say titles, the kind of the job description that you will take on. So keeping that in mind, we're going to start jumping into a few pointers on how you can position yourself and how you can be attractive to these different types of companies and different type of roles. Are we doing on time? So I have maybe 8 minutes, so I think we should be able to do this like in the next few minutes. How to decide? Really do all of the following. Have concrete goals. Again, I don't mean for this to be like a motivational speech. Really, there's a reason behind all of this. I cannot overemphasize on this one point. Having concrete goals is super important. You not having a focus when you're starting out is going to be just very damaging to you. And what I mean by that is, when you're going in, you can't be unsure about whether you want to be a software developer, or if you want to be this is when you're starting out, by the way, or if you want to be, I don't know, if you want to be in a UX designer, because you will have to have very different skills for the two. When you're marketing yourself, if you don't have the focus yourself, it's going to be very hard for you to market yourself as two different personas. That said, you could be interested in two things at different points in time. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, when you're starting out, you be very specific about what you need to achieve, because having those goals will help you focus really well. Understand what makes you happy. I talked about different roles. As a software developer, giving my example, I'm an introvert. I'm very happy with sitting in a corner. Early on in my career, I was very happy sitting in a corner and just writing code or doing something, and then growing in my career. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I were a product manager, because then I'm forced to talk to people. So understand what makes you happy, and keep that in mind when you're targeting these roles. If you are a very extroverted person, and you choose a job, and by the way, like not all software developers are like that, but if you are an extroverted person and you realize that you're in a job where you don't get to talk to people, it's not going to make you happy. So just understand what makes you happy. Keep that in mind when you're kind of like shortlisting places to apply to, or companies to be part of. Be practical, but don't overdo it. When I say practical, I mean, if you do not have a background into pure science, that might be okay. But you will need to do something in coding if you want to be a software developer, right? You cannot just show up, not know coding, and just say, I'll learn on the job. That's being practical. You have to align your skills with the requirements of the job. How you achieve those skills is a completely different topic. I cannot go into that right now, but be practical, but don't overdo it. When I say don't overdo it, it's like, don't restrict yourself. Don't say, oh, I don't have, I want to be a software developer, but because I don't have a degree, I'm just not even going to try it. Just reskill yourself. But again, be practical. Understand where you stand. Understand what the job requirements are. Try to align them. Don't try to. You really cannot, power through a job interview if you don't know the ABCs of what the job requires. It's going to be hard. So do that. Be flexible. Accept that you'll be wrong a lot. An example here is, people, when they're in school, they have a certain idea of what really makes them happy. Like an example is AI. AI is hot. You might think this is AI in the real world, but you get to the job and it's something completely different. You were thinking it was robotics. It is something else. You were thinking it was NLP, but it was something completely different, because it's a broad field. I would just ask to be flexible, accept that you were wrong, and that's fine. You can always steer direction, but don't be too rigid in, this is what I want. If this is not what I get, I'll be disappointed, or something along those lines. Be flexible, especially starting out early. This is crucial when people start out. Being flexible, being a sponge, absorbing knowledge, and accepting that you were wrong is key. Don't be rigid. And this is the last thing that I have to say. And if you scratch everything, forget everything that I said today, and just keep this one thing, and just keep this in mind after you leave here, I think my purpose is achieved. Find a mentor, and this is Pakistani Women in Computing is just an amazing platform. This entire thing is, you see how well this is organized, is just amazing. All of these people have put in their time. I'm sure a lot of them will be just super happy to be mentors. The reason it's important to find a mentor is because career is an ongoing thing. You won't be you're not done with all your career choices right away. You'll have multiple mentors in your career. Make sure that you find people who you align with in terms of their values when it comes to career, and ask for help. People love helping. Please don't be shy. Reach out to folks who you think can help out. If they're not able to help out, that's fine. Don't be disappointed. But definitely find a mentor. You will get an opportunity to pay them back or pay it forward. My career, I've relied a lot on mentors from day one to up to this point. No one can achieve. They kind of say this thing, sitting on the shoulders of giants, and that's very true. Every successful person is, there's a lot of people that make that happen, and mentors are key in that area. So find people who are closer to what you're trying to do. Find people who are in the field that you would like to be in, and just reach out to them. Ask them for help. Go with specific questions, and I think that one thing, like I said, forget everything that I said. Just find a mentor. Find multiple mentors. That thing is going to go a long way. With that, I'm going to wrap up. I'm just 2 minutes. I have 2 minutes left, but I am just going to stop here and open the floor for any questions that folks may have. Oh, there's a lot of them. So Novera, you mind?
Yeah, I can filter through. So the first question that we have is, at Microsoft, for aspiring product.
Sorry, you'll have to give me a second. I'll have to get back into my. Yeah. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
All right.
So they're saying, at Microsoft, do product managers need to have coding skills or have a technical master's in information degree?
They do not. At Microsoft, you'll see people who come from the field, consultants. What you do need to have, if you're starting out as a really fresh product manager, what you do need is the ability to just be able to show that you can connect the dots. You can take things from requirements that are fairly high level, business level requirements to technical details that you would need to know. But you do not need a degree in computer science or anything technical to be a product manager. There are most of the product managers that I respect, not most of them, a big chunk of them come from backgrounds that are not tech. They come from the field, they come from sales, they come from all sorts of places, and no, absolutely not a requirement.
Cool. And then we have another one. How do you pitch yourself when you're changing careers? How do you display your profile so that it's aligned with your experience and what you are aiming for? Do managers consider profiles who are changing careers?
Managers definitely consider profiles that are changing career, that are changing sort of disciplines, I would call them. I will not sugarcoat this. It's going to be pretty hard, but that doesn't mean that it's not possible. So I'll give you the example of this is a term in the industry that's gone pretty viral these days, called reskilling yourself. Lots of people who started in different fields just are not satisfied there, or just for whatever reason don't want to be in that field, want to move into something else. You need skill for. So, if you were to ask me about software development, right, I would do if I we recently helped someone, by the way, who was a doctor making a ton of money, wanted to be in software just because they liked the idea of it and did not have a background. So what you do is you reskill yourself. The first thing you do is you put stuff on your LinkedIn that shows that you have, even though you don't have the background for it, you have taken the initiative to build something of your own. Put something on GitHub. Attend seminars, network with people. Again, find a mentor who would be able to guide you toward that specific skill or toward that specific field that you want to be in. Your background gets like super. I don't want to minimize the degree or your computer science backgrounds, but that all goes away if you've built something that is attractive to the employees. So if I'm building, like, I'll give you an example. If I'm building, my company builds phone apps. If you've built really good phone apps, I don't care if people use it or not. If you can show me that you've built good phone apps and you've put that on your profile, you have a recommendation from someone who's worked with you on it, and I look at it and I like it, I'd be very tempted to reach out to you and do an interview. So look at what skills are required for that role, what are the job expectations, and try to align yourself with those. And I think that would help.
Cool. I think we have time for one more question from Facebook. It's, what if you want to stay on the IC track, but by default, you keep getting pulled into manager track projects?
Oh, yeah, that's a hard one because I know how that works. So here's the thing, right? Again, won't sugarcoat this. Beyond a certain point, progressing on in the IC stack gets pretty hard. And the reason for that is the number of opportunities are lesser. And the people who are very senior ICs are just extremely good at what they do. A principal level software engineer is just extremely good at what they do. And so your competition as you go higher just gets really, I'd say, brutal. So if you are to do that, I would say the best way of doing that is to be just extremely good at what you do. The reason people get pulled into management is it's not a bad thing. That means that you have leadership capabilities and people want you to lead, and people want you to impart knowledge and be able to have other people do what you're doing. I would just personally, I would say I've been through that. When someone becomes a really senior IC and they're really good at what they do, like, leadership will automatically pull them into leadership and management. Some of that is not direct management. You're just part of being a leader. But you have to be just extremely focused on being the IC, being an in-depth person as to be a breadth person. There's like not a silver bullet for doing that. But I would say just be aware that as you grow in your career, at some point it's going to be harder to get promoted as an IC than it would be to be promoted as a manager. So just be okay with that, and just try to be as good as you can at what you do.
All right. Thank you so much, Assad. Thank you for all your valuable advice, and thank you everybody for attending and for participating. We will be back at 6:30 for our LinkedIn workshop. Thank you, Assad.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Assalamu alaikum.